Welcome back to UTV Driver. We are talking our favorite sport rigs.
Woo!
This is where all the fun's at, right? Utility rigs, they're all fun and games,
Sure.
but you want 200 horsepower.
That's right.
You want acres of suspension travel. You
2
want
feet of it, in fact.
2 feet of it.
We want 30s from the factory.
That's what we're here for.
We want rock crawling.
We
We
want
want
rock crawling.
yumps. We want to go yumping. And with that in mind, let's kick off the list. Zach, what's number one?
Look, man, no surprise here, the Maverick R. Can-Am Maverick R.
Weird.
Holy crap. This thing did things to my brain that probably aren't safe for a family show.
Why don't you try?
UTVs are great in the desert in general, right? You know, anytime you've got something with big floppy bits out front and all the rest of that. But we're used to that coming with some compromises.
Right.
Specifically in the handling department.
They roll over.
Well, yeah.
Or like it's easy enough.
They're tippy, right?
Right.
The Mav R does not have that problem.
Really?
It handles like a proper sports car that just happens to have 200 horsepower, all-wheel drive, a locker in the rear, and a big funky crab suspension thing up
Yeah,
front.
tell me what the lobster claws are. What's that for?
Can-Am realized that they were having a really hard time increasing wheel travel and maintaining a low roll center. A low roll center basically keeps the vehicle planted. So they came up with this what they call the tall knuckle, which is the sort of crabby bits that stick out,
Right.
and that's what helps keep the roll center where you want it to be, and it makes an honest-to-God difference. And you know, it's hard to pick an angle to talk about this machine. It's got a crap ton of power out of a reworked Rotax. It's got a dual clutch transmission that is spectacular. It's got a fancy 10-inch screen inside. It's a really, really proper machine, and I've said this a million times, it's moved the sport game forward in a very serious way.
And there's plenty of evidence to back that up too. We talked to Mint 400 winner Dustin Jones. He went out and won the Silver State 300 this year in an almost stock Maverick R. It was the rig's first time out. Not only did he win the UTV Open class, he won the whole race in a UTV. It was the first time a UTV has won a desert race overall. We talked to him a little bit later, and one of the things he told us was, before we used to try and convince ourselves we weren't racing souped up golf carts, but then he got into this thing and realized, oh, we're racing cars now. And one of the key things he said was, we're no longer racing against belt temps because of that geared transmission. He was telling stories about running past a competitor's machine, and he could hear them backing off the throttle to keep the belt temps down. He just kept that pedal welded to the firewall 100 miles an hour across the desert. And again, they revalved the shocks, they reinforced a couple of things, but it was the stock rollover system. It was a stock machine. It was a stock rig, 240 horsepower. There just can't be a number one aside from that.
Yeah, and you know, all of that doesn't come at the cost of reliability. You know, we beat the snot out of these things over 200 miles over the course of 2 days, and we had some flat tires from idiots like me.
Yep.
But otherwise, the thing just kept rocking.
Well, and it's worth noting that Rotax has been building high-performance power sports engines since who laid the rail. They know what they're doing. They've got their head screwed on straight. They've taken a lot of lessons from the Maverick X3, which is a similar architecture engine, and figured out how to make it beefier, and they put it in the Maverick R.
Yeah, and obviously, if you want to know more, we've got a bunch of videos, buyer's guides over at the website that'll tell you everything you want to know about this machine. We've written about it ad nauseum because we're just stoked on it. It's good.
Yep, and look out for more from us on the Maverick R. That leads us to number two.
Speaking of Rs.
Yeah, speaking of Rs, we'll add more Rs to this list. Number two is the Polaris RZR Pro R, and we should say it's a close second.
I think I said in my write-up that like if you already had a Pro R,
right,
you're probably not going to sell it to go buy a Mav R.
There's no reason to,
There's
right?
no such a good machine.
It's such a fantastic
right out of the box.
We talked about side-by-sides naturally tippy handling. The Pro R doesn't do that either. It has, the dampers are dialed, and it's got nice long rear trailing arms, so it's really stable. You can put it into a slide and feel like you can sit there all day long. Until the Maverick R came out, the Pro R was head, shoulders, and neck above everything else on the market. And really the only drawbacks still are the rubber belt.
That's it. Really the only thing that bumps it down to number two is the fact that you're still stuck with a CVT, which, hey, you know, a lot of people still like a CVT. Tried and true, you've known it forever. Changing a belt isn't the end of the world.
No, and desert racers will tell you that by this point they've been racing with rubber belts long enough that they've got a pretty good idea how to keep the belt temperatures down. It is something to note, but also it's something that the industry has dealt with pretty handily. And if you're into like luxury and comfort and bringing passengers with you, the Maverick R doesn't let you bring two extra passengers. There's a Pro R4. You can throw your family in the back. We ripped one of those at Glamis, and man.
Well, and you've got plenty of power and torque, right?
Yeah.
You've got a big 2-liter 4-cylinder. It's the biggest engine of any side-by-side out there. The thing is an absolute hoss. It's a proven engine. They yanked it right out of the slingshot, and that thing has hundreds of thousands of miles on it out in the wild, and it's just a good powertrain.
It's worth noting that it's naturally aspirated, so you get that exciting sports car throttle response. And let's face it, if you take a 1000cc motor and cram enough air down it through a turbo to make it make 240 horsepower, you're adding heat, you're adding cylinder pressure, you are adding variables that will shorten the life of the engine no matter which way you cut it. And you know, you don't necessarily have those issues with a naturally aspirated power plant. So really, number 1 and number 2 are very close together on this list. We love both of them. We want to spend more time in each one.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go any farther, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That'll mean you get to see our videos as soon as they come out. Let's get back at it. Polaris is taking number 3, too, with the Turbo R.
Which is
spicy.
Yeah, another great machine. Again, if you don't need all the horsepower and torque of a 225 horsepower 4-cylinder in the Pro R, get you a Turbo R. For one thing, it's fun for a turbo to spool up, and you know, that engine is characterful.
If you live in an area where there are regulations that limit the type of engine you can have in your UTV, the Turbo R is not far behind the Pro R in terms of performance.
It's really not. It's 180 horsepower. It's still got the CVT.
Only 180 horsepower.
Yeah, as much as a Honda Civic Si. I mean, it's, you know, or a Mazda Miata, right? Like, we're talking about proper amounts of horsepower. And if you think you can't scare yourself silly with 180 horsepower, you got another thing coming.
Yeah, the thing looks like $1 million. It's got plenty of suspension articulation. It's, you know, it's everything that we love about the XP1000, just jacked to the absolute moon.
Right, and it's a little bit shorter and a little bit narrower than a Pro R. It's not the same platform with a different engine. Polaris actually thought that through and made the Turbo R a little bit less aggressive in every respect. It's still just as good. But what I'm getting at is out here in East Tennessee, where the trails are narrow and the trails are rocky and you don't have room to go 85 miles an hour, the Turbo R really works because it's got that turbo torque. You're not always in, you know, at 200 horsepower, and you've got more room to get through tight trails.
We couldn't make this list without talking about it.
Nope.
It's been just a truly excellent machine for a long time. Speaking of Polaris, Polaris has taken a lot of slots on this list.
Yep, we got to go to number 4. This is the third Polaris in a row. This is the 2024 Polaris RZR XP 1000. Now, this is not the 2022 Polaris RZR XP 1000. For 2024, Polaris redesigned this rig from the ground up. They went all the way back to square one. It might look similar to an earlier Polaris RZR XP 1000. It's a completely different machine. We were on the launch. They actually were kind enough to do it here in our backyard at Windrock, and we were blown away. This has taken side-by-sides, entry-level side-by-sides, to a new level where they used to be rickety and rackety and a little bit, well, golf carty, frankly. This is a machine that has kind of come into its own and is bringing sports side-by-sides along with it. You're really getting what feels like a fully realized machine out of this. And, you know, if you don't need 180 horsepower, 100 will do. And
well, it's not only that, right? If you were coming to a sport side-by-side for the very first time, you probably don't need a Maverick R or Pro R or Turbo R. There is a lot of fun to be had in that around 100 horsepower neighborhood, and the XP 1000 is the top of the class there.
It really is. And again, out east, it's really the machine for you. You know, we love the Pro R, we love the Turbo R. You can find places to use them out here, but if you want a rig you can just throw on the back of your truck, take to whatever off-road park you want to go to, or the Hatfield McCoy trails. You know it's going to fit. You know you can put a younger driver or a first-time side-by-side driver in it and not be afraid of them getting out over their skis. The XP 1000 is it. And we should also mention that it's reasonably inexpensive, especially when compared to the first 3 rigs on this list, all of which are costly. We expect a Maverick R up to $73,000 just playing around on the website one day.
Throwing accessories at it, right? Which is insane. You know, and a RZR XP 1000 topped out, you're looking at $29,000 before you start throwing a bunch of accessories at it. That's pretty great.
Entry level, you're looking at below 22. Again, that is still a lot of money, but you know, you're talking about the realm of, you know, a used pontoon boat at that point, and I know which one I'd rather have.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Number 5. So this has been a long-time favorite of ours, the Kawasaki KRX.
KRX 1000 is a unit. We love this machine primarily because it has the Some of the best suspension in the business, especially for an entry-level rig. It feels incredible. It's dialed right out of the box.
Still, the KRX really hasn't changed all that much. They added a 4-seat unit a while back, which is huge. It's nice to be able to bring the family along. But really, what sets this rig apart from everything else, without a smart suspension, it has some of the best dynamics of any other machine in that realm.
Right.
This isn't an open class rig like the Mav R and the Pro R or even the Turbo R. This is more of a in that 100 horsepower neighborhood, but it definitely makes the best of what it has. It comes with beadlocks right out of the box, proper wheel and tire package. The engine braking on it is sublime. I mean, you know, head down a really, really steep gully, mash the engine braking button, and the thing will just crawl. You don't even have to touch the brakes the entire time.
Right.
You know, at this point, it's falling a little behind in terms of interior refinement, that sort of thing. We wouldn't mind seeing more power. You know, we heard that the guys at SxS actually developed a power adder for the thing, and I was really hoping that Kawasaki was just gonna, you know, throw that into the lineup.
Right.
Hasn't happened. Still, a little more power wouldn't hurt us at this point. A little more refinement wouldn't either. And that's the only reason it falls behind the XP 1000.
But at $23,199, you can option it up with Fox Live Valve suspension, a Warn winch, a really nice Hyphonic stereo. So Kawasaki really has, you know, taken steps to put some premium features on it. And yeah, they've built a wonderful rig here, and one that I think most people would be super happy in for a long time.
Absolutely. And it's worth pointing out that, especially this time of year, they're discounting 2023 models left, right, and center. We just wrote a post on the website that they were knocking $2,500 off those rigs.
Yeah.
I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that gets you down to 20 grand, and at that point it is an absolute no-brainer. Yeah, let's move on to number 6 on the list, and finally Can-Am's back in the running with the 2024 Can-Am Maverick X3. The whole lineup is dear to our hearts. There are 2 different power ranges you can get with the Maverick X3. There must be 5,000 different ways you can configure the thing from the factory. We can't keep them all straight, but there's a 150 horsepower guys and there is a 200 horsepower guys. Again, much like the Pro R being just below the Maverick R, until the Maverick R came out, the Can-Am Maverick X3 was the top of the lineup, and it was industry standard. This thing is incredible. You're getting close to 2 feet of suspension travel, as I mentioned, 200 horsepower, and you're still on a CVT, which for a lot of people is a really helpful thing. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to worry about turbo lag. You mash the gas, and that thing goes. We've got one ourselves. It is the rig that we chose to buy for the shop rig here, and man, we have done so much with that machine.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason we bought it, because at the time it was the most powerful unit we could get our hands on, right?
Yep.
So just south of 200 horsepower, and it's been excellent. You know, we bought the Turbo RR, which really is not for this neck of the woods.
No.
Right? Like, that's really made...
Well, we love to have it.
Yeah, 100%. It's really made for going out of the desert and doing 100 miles an hour. There's no desert in East Tennessee.
No.
So we sort of, you know, tweaked it a little bit to our liking. We put 35s on it, and really what surprised me more than anything was how adaptable that machine and that drivetrain was. So despite being made for just like wide open hauling, it does great in the technical stuff, even at 72 inches wide.
Yeah, we've done a lot of rock crawling that shouldn't be possible in a rig that's made for top end, and it ate it up. Where a turbo machine with 200 horsepower you might think is a little twitchy for rock crawling, we put 35s on it. That really kind of made the powertrain work a little bit better. It kind of smoothed everything out. And yeah, we've got an incredibly versatile rig. We've got a set of 32s for it, so if we want to go do some stuff that's a little bit faster, we can put those on. The power's back. We put a tuner on it. We've decked it out. So it really is the kind of machine that you can buy a base one pretty cheaply with 200 horsepower and just build it to your liking. You don't have to spend $75,000 on a Maverick R.
Yeah, and what we really like about it is that there really is one from the factory to suit whatever you need, however you ride, right out of the box.
Yeah, they've got a mud-ready one, they've got a rock-crawling one, they've got one for families, you know. And again, I should point out that we've spoken to desert racers who have had absolutely no trouble out of the Can-Am Maverick X3 up to this year. The game moved forward this year, but there really wasn't any trouble. I mean, South Racing builds these things for the Dakar Rally. I mean, they don't have trouble with belt temperatures in Dakar.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
That's a pretty special thing to say about it.
All right, let's talk about some honorable mention. You know, I'm gonna put the Honda Talon on there still.
No, I think so. I think that's right. You may have seen a video from us recently kind of busting on the Talon, how to fix the Talon. Well, I mean, the best way to fix a Talon is to go buy one because A, they're pretty inexpensive, and B, it was an industry standard rig in 2019. That was 4 years ago, and it still does a lot of things things really, really well. Now, we have complained about it, but really those are just nitpicks based on the industry moving ahead of the Talon in the last 4 years. But up until that point, man, you couldn't get a side-by-side with a DCT except for the Honda Talon and like the Yamaha YXZ.
Well, and I still think the Talon is the least expensive way to get into live valve, period.
Absolutely.
And you wind up with a dual clutch transmission. You're not dealing with a rubber belt. For a lot of people, that combined with the Honda name is enough to park one in the garage.
And it's got the 100 horsepower parallel twin out of the Africa Twin motorcycle. It's a really characterful engine. It sounds incredible. It's really playful, and you go banging through the gears in it and it really responds, and you can tell that it's there to do the job that is have fun. We've had them in the desert, we've had them in the woods, we've put 32s on them with no clearance issues. Oh, we had a rooftop 10 on one.
Yeah, that happened. They're just, they're really playful, fun rigs. It's great to bang through the gears with the pedals. And, if we're talking about the Pro R having a proven engine, nothing's more proven than pulling the engine out of an Africa Twin.
Right.
Those bikes have been out for years. Honda probably has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles out in the wild on that motor. Properly stout driveline.
Yep, and you're getting Honda build quality.
Hard
to argue fairer than that, right?
Yeah.
That'll do it for our list of our favorite sports side-by-sides. Head over to utvdriver.com for more. We have buyer's guides on each and every one of these rigs. We got all kinds of shopping tools, and when you're done doing that, head over to our socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're there 7 days a week. We'll catch you around.